The Dark Legacy of the Galactic Empire: A Tale of Tyranny, Fear, and the Shadows of Power. Prologue. The fall of light. The Galactic Empire rose from the ashes of the Republic, a once prosperous democracy brought to its knees by war, corruption, and the machinations of a single, shadowy figure, Emperor Palpatine. With the fall of the Jedi and the centralization of power, the Empire cast a dark shadow over the galaxy, ruling with an iron fist under the guise of peace and order. But beneath the gleaming towers of Coruscant and the disciplined ranks of the Imperial military, there was another story, a tale of oppression, suffering, and the slow decay of a galaxy strangled by fear. This is the story of the Empire's dark legacy, seen through the eyes of those who lived under its rule, suffered its cruelty, and sought to escape its grasp. The machine of oppression. The Empire's rule was absolute. Its control extended to every sector, planet, and system, enforced by an endless legion of stormtroopers and the ever-watchful gaze of the ISB, Imperial Security Bureau. The once independent worlds of the galaxy found themselves bound by laws that served only the Emperor's will. For ordinary citizens, life under the Empire was not always immediate suffering. At first, stability was promised, order restored. But soon, that order became chains. Planets were taxed to the brink of collapse, dissent was met with brutal retribution, and entire populations were enslaved to fuel the war machine. Among the most infamous examples was the Wookiee homeworld of Kashyyyk. Once a lush paradise, it became a prison camp where Wookiees were shackled and forced to construct Imperial weapons and ships. The towering trees that had stood for millennia were cut down, their sacred forests burned. The Empire's message was clear: resistance was futile. The enforcers of tyranny. The Empire's greatest weapon was not just its fleets or its troops, it was fear. The ISB acted as the secret police, hunting down dissenters before they could even organize. Local governors ruled their sectors with ruthless efficiency, given unchecked power to maintain order by any means necessary. For those who resisted, punishment was swift and brutal. Whole cities were razed to the ground for harboring rebels. Family members of traitors were executed as warnings to others. The Death Troopers, elite, faceless enforcers, silenced opposition before it could spread. But among these enforcers, some began to question. Captain Darren Vallis of the ISB had once believed in the Empire's vision of order, but after witnessing the destruction of a peaceful village suspected of harboring a single rebel, he saw the truth. The Empire was not preserving peace. It was extinguishing hope. Vallis was not the first to doubt, nor would he be the last. But those who hesitated in their duty often found themselves on the other end of a blaster. The doomed worlds. There were entire planets that ceased to exist because of the Empire's wrath. Alderaan, the peaceful jewel of the core worlds, was reduced to dust in an instant. Its billions of inhabitants were wiped from existence, their voices silenced forever. But Alderaan was not the first world to suffer. Years before its destruction, the Empire had tested its weapons on less conspicuous planets. In the Outer Rim, the planet Lazan was once home to the proud Lazat people. When they resisted Imperial rule, their world was ravaged. Orbital bombardments turned cities to ruins, and the survivors were hunted down. The Lazat, once warriors and philosophers, were reduced to near extinction. Geonosis, the birthplace of the clone army, was another victim. After the Death Star's construction was nearly complete, the Empire saw fit to ensure secrecy by exterminating the entire Geonosian population. Billions were gassed to death in silence, their contributions erased. These were not just acts of war. They were acts of genocide. Chapter 4, The Slaves of the Empire. The Empire's war machine required more than just soldiers, it required slaves. Entire populations were forced into labor camps, building the fleets and superweapons that kept the Emperor's grip on the galaxy unbreakable. On Kessel, prisoners mined spice under unbearable conditions, worked to death for the Empire's profit. On Lothal, young minds were molded into obedient stormtroopers, stripped of their identities and reshaped into tools of war. The worst fate was reserved for those deemed non-essential. The Empire's brutal policies saw entire alien species enslaved. Twi'leks, Mon Calamari, and even human dissidents were shackled and sold like property. One such prisoner, a young Twi'lek named Sela, had once been a musician on Ryloth. But after the Empire took control, she found herself on a transport bound for an unknown fate. She never saw her family again. The Empire's legacy was not just one of destruction, but of stolen lives. The shadows of the Sith at the heart of the Empire's darkness was its ruler. Emperor Palpatine was no mere dictator, he was a Sith Lord, a master of the dark side whose influence reached beyond politics and into the very essence of the Force. The Sith's rule was not just about power, but corruption. Under Palpatine's command, the Inquisitors hunted down the last remnants of the Jedi, ensuring that no light remained to challenge the darkness. These former Jedi, twisted by pain and manipulation, became executioners for the very thing they once swore to destroy. But even among the Sith, fear ruled. Darth Vader, the Emperor's enforcer, was both feared and pitied. Beneath his mask was a man who had lost everything, his body a broken shell kept alive only by the Emperor's will. His suffering was endless, a reflection of the Empire's true nature. Power sustained through torment. The rebellion rises, but darkness, no matter how suffocating, cannot last forever. The seeds of rebellion were planted long before the first battles. In the shadows, leaders like Mon Mothma, Bail Organa, and Saw Gerrera saw the truth of the Empire and vowed to fight back. Their forces were small at first, scattered across the stars, but the Empire's cruelty fueled resistance. Every atrocity, every execution, every world burned in its wake only strengthened the resolve of those who stood against it. From the frozen wastes of Hoth to the forests of Endor, the rebellion grew. In the end, the Empire's greatest weakness was its own arrogance. It believed itself unbreakable, eternal. But the very fear it used to control the galaxy also made it blind to the hope it could not kill. Epilogue: the echoes of tyranny. Even after the Empire fell, its shadow remained. Its remnants scattered, warlords rose, and new tyrants sought to reclaim its power. The scars left by its rule did not fade overnight, but in the ruins of its dark legacy, something else grew: resilience. Survivors of its terror carried forward the stories of those lost, ensuring that the horrors of the past would not be forgotten. For the galaxy, the fall of the Empire was not just a victory. It was a lesson. A reminder that tyranny thrives when fear prevails, and that even the darkest legacy can be undone by the light of resistance. And so, the story continues. Would you like any changes or additions?